So I'm a software engineer for 25 years, and I'm semi-retired. And so the kind of the things for fun is like I want to learn Android. How do you write an Android app? So that's the retired part. Or if I want to learn, I just go on that for a month and learn how to do it. If I want to learn something else like Ruby on Rails, I dig into that. So this is kind of the retired part. Again, is I want to learn how Angular works. So there's 7 presentations on Angular, and I expect this is probably the most basic. So if you is anybody here professionally use AngularJS or Angular? Okay.
I mean, they pay me, but
They pay you? Okay. Okay. Great.
We just started a couple months ago, and I'm still learning.
Okay. Good. So so this is the kind of presentation. Let's say if you are a database guy, you're into big data, you're an expert on HADOP, and once in a while you peek around the corner and see what happens on the front end, and this is your day to peek around the corner and see what's going on. Then this is the presentation for you. So if you that's the idea here. So hello world. Kind of the idea with Angular is how can we make what if you really wanted to be able to have interactive HTML, what would it have been in the first place? And so I'm going to just start out this and write a piece of Angular hello world, and let's see how this turns out. So just HTML. So I hope I have some syntax checkers in the audience. And we'll probably throw a body in here. Okay. And so if I was just going to do some real simple HTML, and I wanted to have an H1 here. And say hello John. Now where this is going is we're going to turn this into the whole world in Angular. But to start out with, let's go and throw this up into the a browser. There you go. Okay. So we're successful so far with just basic HTML. So now how do we add a little bit of Angular to that? And so we're going to say if we wanted to okay, what's the next word? Who's awake? Okay, this guy gets a shirt. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do, well, I'm going to show you some that doesn't work quite yet. And we're gonna erase this down here. So When you see an Angular, you see model. So this is model view controller if you've been in other environments. So the model is another word for data, essentially. So we're going to, this is going to start looking a little bit like Angular now. Okay. And it's not going to quite work yet. And just to prove that it doesn't quite work yet. Okay, so it's not quite working yet. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. And so I can't quite type this whole statement here from memory, so I'm going to cheat. And I'm going to copy. So I pre-downloaded a bunch of Angular stuff, and so it's on my hard drive. And you can, in a production environment, you'd actually want to load this off the internet. But just in case the Wi-Fi wasn't working at the moment, you can see that I don't have a registered copy of Sublime. So let's see what happens here. So there's still one thing missing. So just to prove that it's missing, we'll go back here, and again, it still doesn't work quite yet. So it's not working yet. And this is kind of the last piece of Angular magic in this hello world. This is a directive to tell the AngularJS module that we're loading in the script to go ahead and compile this and look for the special things that are Angular in here. So, okay, what's your name?
Randy.
Randy?
Yep.
Randy. Okay, hello Randy. Okay, so now we have a working Angular JS. So this is called two-way data binding. And so we're actually putting something in, Randy, to start with. And let's see if I can make this any bigger. Okay, and then that's in the view, and then that's being taken by the model. It's put in, that data is put in, and then it's redisplayed back on the screen. So that's a two-way binding. Okay. So now the presentation before this was ampersand JS. Okay. And he did some things that were a little bit more than this, but not much. And excuse me. So if you, there's the hello world. If you were to do this with like jQuery, you capture an event, you change the DOM, you interact with the DOM and stuff, and it would look like this for just a hello world to do the same amount of functionality. And with AngularJS, it's simpler. So that's the idea with AngularJS is, jQuery is wonderful, but it's a little bit more involved. Angular is closer to HTML, and Angular gives power and simplicity. Now, whenever you're in programming or computers, whenever you have something that's powerful and simple, this is for a T-shirt. If you had all the T-shirts you can stand, I'll throw you some M&Ms. So when you have something that's simple in the computer world, what do?
You do it. Because programmers are lazy. They want the quickest way to get the job done.
Okay. And so you love that. Okay, so here's an Angular shirt. So
Make it complicated.
make it complicated. That's right. That's really the answer I was looking for. If it's easy, then you do a lot of it and make it complicated, right? So you want a shirt or M&Ms?
Sure.
A shirt. Okay. And so I think this one.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, you can get real complicated with Angular, and a commercial app is if that's too small, I've got some bigger ones up here. Okay. So is that too small? Okay, I got some bigger ones up here if you need it. Commercial Angular is going to be pretty big. So we're not quite to that slide yet. Let's see. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to play around a little bit here with how I learned Angular, and I went to the docs.angular.js tutorial, and we're going to spend a little time on that. This really fit my mode of learning quite well. That I love, I love a detailed tutorial. Has anybody gone through this tutorial? Okay, and yeah, okay. So the guys that are really knowledgeable, been on Angular for a while, they hate this tutorial because it doesn't have kind of the current best practices. And so, well, they kind of turn their nose up, but it still gives you a lot of the basics of AngularJS, and I'll give you some references on some of where you go to look for the current best practices, at the end of the presentation. But it suits me quite well, and so right to start with, we've got this little button here. Live demo, if it works. Okay, so this is right so far is not too much more than just a hello world type thing. It's basically just a static template, and we've already kind of looked at that. A template in an Angular is an HTML page that you use to kind of fill in, and so let's go and look at just the beginning Angular template here, and so this would be your view. And you can see that they have done the magic, and this is GitHub, and so it's a diff, and so the little pink line means that's what was in the last thing before the last commit, and what was changed. This line is new. The slightly green. I don't know if you can see the color there. And so you can see here they did this same sourcing in the, well, this is Bootstrap, and then they sourced in the AngularJS right there, and they're starting to have a controller. Now there's an Angular directive of ng controller. And they're calling this to start out with phoneless controller. And down in the controller, this will change as it goes along. They're actually just hard coding the data in here in the controller, but it'll get a little more sophisticated as this goes along. And then they're using, this is a bit of Angular here. They're having this ng repeat takes an item out of an array of phones and builds this, displays the data, the phone name, the phone snippet. So it's gradually getting a little bit more involved here, and that's actually what some Angular, a lot of Angular looks pretty much like that. You have these nice little built-in directives that do things like the repeat and so on. The controller, this is kind of the basics of a controller, and here they're just making it real simple. They're putting it into a just kind of hard coding the data, and we'll do that a little different here in a while. But this idea right here, this word is a very big deal in Angular, the scope, and so that you have scope that allows the communication between the model and the view, and so that two-way data binding depends on that scope. You can have subscopes and so on, but in this, so far we're just doing one scope. Here's another nice little thing. Okay, we're getting a little bit more involved now. They're allowing us to do a search. Okay, so updating the view dynamically according to your response, and the amount of code that it takes to do this is pretty simple in Angular, and that's what people love is there's a lot of those directives that do this sort of thing for you. And here in the tutorial, they just show what is happening. They're starting to clean up the view in the index.html, and we're using this filter. This is a nice little feature here. The pipe and filtering according to what comes in from up here in the query, and in that ng model, which is in my hello world, I was just using that same input type of thing. So, any questions so far?
That word query, was that arbitrary?
It's arbitrary, yeah. That's just basically a on-the-fly variable name. Any other questions? Okay. So now we're starting. This is got a good example into the two-way data binding, and again, the template is just HTML files, and that have some Angular in them that they're going to do some cool stuff. We're going to talk about this right here, this order property. This is a pretty good demonstration of the idea of the two-way data binding in Angular. And so we've added to this ng repeat, we've added one more parameter here. We had the filter before, and now we're telling it, what to order by. And this is kind of an example. This is a good example of the two-way data binding, because right down in here, they're going to talk about the controller. Okay, we saw this in the last step in 3, but they've added right down at the bottom, they've added this order prop to the scope of age. And so going back to the live demo part, and so we can sort this list according to alphabetical, or we can sort it according to newest. But when you saw the age, what that was doing in the controller, it was putting the order property in the scope, preloading it according to age. And so what the way they've built this data is that they gave a value, just a number, and the lower the number, the newer it was, I guess. So it's sorting these according to age, and then of course we can sort it to alphabetical. So not only and then from this end, if we put in let's see, NEX, can't type. Okay, so that's coming from updating the bindings from the view side into the model. So it can go both ways. So you could have something that maybe you're watching something else across the internet entirely. It doesn't have anything to do with this. So like you're displaying stock prices, and you're updating the view by you're running that controller. You're running some kind of a process, and it updates the view with nothing to do with what I'm typing here or anything, and it's updating as the stock prices go up and down. It's showing that on your view. Okay, another concept is dependency injection, and here they're starting. Okay, this is good to note. This they have preloaded some information. This PhoneCat app. Eventually, it's going to build a list of phones and so on. You'll see that in a minute. With pictures and everything like that. So in the tutorial that you can get off at GitHub, they've preloaded this data and stuff, and they just didn't start to use it to start with. But now they've got this JSON file that we're going to be using instead of just a hard-loaded data in the controller, and they're going to use the HTTP service in Angular and simulate what you might have a back-end server doing of updating your data, but we're just doing it from a file on the hard drive at this point. And so the controller has been changed to use this HTTP GET to access the file off the hard drive to pull up the data instead of where just a bit ago it was. Let's look at the code diff. Okay, so previously in the pink space there, it was just hard-coded in the controller. Now we're actually pulling it off a file with the HTTP GET, and that could be just like you're actually pulling off a back-end server rather than your hard drive, but it would work pretty much the same. And then again, you see the data that's been pulled in this function right here argument is being loaded into the scope, and we're giving it the name phones in the scope. And so over here, where before it was previously, it was just hard coded into this phones. Now it's being done dynamically with the HTTP GET. Okay. Any questions at this point? Just stop. Okay. Everybody's still awake. That's good. That's good. Now, okay, we're going to start breaking this out to where you can have more than one template. So we're going to, the next step 7, we're going to start talking about routing and so on. Probably a good time to stop and talk about tests. So there's a lot of things built into Angular to make testing easy. And I'm going to switch over to, let's see, not that one. Okay. So I locally, and in the tutorial, I've been just pulling that off the internet. But I also have the another version of the PhoneCat app running on my hard drive. I started this up, and so I'm going to stop it and start it back up again. That's kind of small. Let's see. And that's completely off the screen. Okay. So it has, just all this magic built in that you can run a server locally. And so it's running on my port 800. And over here is it has Karma running in the, so I've run let me stop this and start it again. So this uses Karma to just watch as you're doing development and you're changing a file. It reports whether your tests are passing. And these are unit tests. And it also has a nice feature built in for end-to-end tests. And this is actually running on the very last version of the tutorial. So this is number 12 that's running. Step 12, and I don't think I'm going to, but you can see it's running the test, the little green dots there in the bottom, and maybe we'll come back and look at that later. So that's part of the tutorial that explains how to do the testing, and it's pretty nice. When I get really ambitious at this, if you like test-driven development where you write the test first, they're not doing that here exactly. So sometime I'm gonna figure out how to do that. Write the test first in Angular and go from there. Okay, so now I've gone to step 7. Which is the routing, And so I've played with Ruby on Rails, and looked at how to do routes and stuff with that. Has anybody here done anything like Ruby on Rails? Okay. So tell me your name. Pete? Okay. Thanks, Pete. And so do you do it professionally?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me like a couple of sentences on how routing works in Ruby on Rails.
Well, I know how to put in routes, but how it works in the background, I don't know.
Okay. So this is.
Give the t-shirt back.
Okay. So this is this Bower JSON file is sourcing in Angular route. So now because we've sourced that in, we now have the magic of maybe with doing an np install to make it work. We now have the magic of routes. And let me scroll down here to where it shows that. Actually, the step 7 has a lot going on in it. So this is the magic of routes, and the route provider in Angular, and you can see that it's testing for when the URL says phones. It's going to do, they've written a couple of new controller pieces, and it's going to do this phone list controller. And if it's a particular phone with an ID, then it's going to test for that, and it's going to call a different controller and give it a different path. So there's some nice magic going on here. I think this would be a good time to just go back to the live demo. Okay, so there's a lot going on since we looked at this last. Maybe I'll back out just a little bit. Okay, so if we say I want Dell phones, and you can see it sorts that and just brings up the only something that has Dell, and I guess the oldest and stuff is already pre-sorted. But so that's what the application looks like at this point. Go ahead.
Those routes were similar to Rails. You just define what URL and you tell it what controller action to process.
Okay.
Sees that.
Okay, you can keep the shirt. Okay. Yeah. It looks similar to the way they do it in Rails. Yeah.
How it does that in the background.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. So now they're going to break this up. Well, they actually started this, and I didn't go into the last time, but there's a couple of there's a phone view. There's a top level view, and then there's a back level. The next view is the phone detail. And let's see. So they haven't implemented this yet, but there's a stub in the previous step, in step 7, and now they're going to start implementing that in step 8. So they're going to start showing the details that can be brought. A little bit more work on the controller. Okay, so this is another template. It's another view, and it's more detailed. So it's the phone detail HTML, and so you see the Angular type stuff, the ng repeat. Is it available or not? And so on, and then they update the tests. Let's go back up to a live demo. I think it's this one. And okay, so now this is the more detailed view. This is a phone list view, and they're starting to show the data a little bit more interestingly, and more pictures and so on. So I'm going to I'm gonna jump right down to step 12. We're getting towards the end of this, because this is, I don't know, this is kind of being a visual guy myself. So we're adding functionality. I'm gonna jump into the code diff. Where, okay, you see you have to do a lot in the CSS. So they have an animation CSS they've added, put a lot of stuff in there. A lot of the magic is happening with CSS. So Angular works well with that. Here's a particular app-specific CSS. And okay, so a lot of the components are not built right into the core Angular. You have to know what to source in. So this is the example here. Is this is the core Angular that's been there for a while, but they're starting to add other pieces. And right here, this is earlier is this Angular routing that was added. And this particular step, the last step, they get into the animation effect. And so they add Angular Animate. And I didn't really explain this when we hit this, but this ng view is something that allows, tells it, okay, look, what view do we need? And so there's the basic top level view, then there's the phone list detail view, and this ng view directive tells it to look for that stuff. So this animation here, you can see that actually we're starting to, I think back up here, we can see this. Just a second. Right here, you can see we're sourcing in jQuery. So there's lots of other pieces that you can work with Angular, and it doesn't do absolutely everything. So we sourced in the jQuery, and we're letting jQuery help us with some of the animation type stuff. And so lots of other things you can bring in and work with Angular. Okay, so let's go to the live demo. And okay, so now watch the animation. So when I click on and I go to one of these links and it goes to the detail, you can see the animation in the fade in, fade out. Okay, and so that you can get those nice effects. We get jQuery to help us with that. There's the animation with sliding the pictures back and forth. And so that's, now we've gone through step 12 real quickly. I want to just show you what I did to help me learn. So now after I've gone through this about 2 or 3 times, I thought, okay, I'm starting to get this. Now how do I really get it more deeply into my head? And so that's when you get down to the end of the tutorial in this last screen, and it says, okay, when you are ready to start developing a project using Angular, we recommend that you bootstrap your development with Angular Seed. And again, this kind of gets into where the guys are really good at Angular and the experience, they're doing it professionally, they kind of turn those up at Angular Seed because it's like a couple of years old. But it still it was a good learning experience for me. And so what I did with the Angular Seed is you download that, and on the your left-hand side is what it looks like. That's what Angular Seed looks like, and on the left-hand side, on your right-hand side is the finished Angular tutorial. And so my objective was okay, how do I take the Angular Seed and build it step by step so that eventually it becomes the side with the as the tutorial looks. And so in doing that, I learned a lot of stuff. You get into the JSON, so package.json. So I actually had 2 or 3 apps that I was doing in controllers at this on my local host at the same time, and so I decided, to keep those straight, they can't be all named 800. So I named one of them 801, and so that was a learning experience. I played around with things like in the tutorial, your clone of the tutorial, you have all the pictures on your hard drive. So I thought, okay, how's that going to work if I source a photograph off the internet? And so you can see that that middle line there. That was one little experiment that I did. So lots of fun little things doing this exercise. Let's see, what was that one? Okay, a lot of learning on how to build your own controllers. How do these controllers work? Just the exercise of changing all the names, to my particular names, and I call this my campsite app. So a lot of little learning experiences, and I had to build my own JSON files that to describe what my app was going to look like, and playing around with Animate, a lot of learning with Git and GitHub, and so I tried to keep all the tests up to date, but I have to admit that by the end of this exercise I was getting a little tired of that. Okay, so let me show you. This is my finished product to learn my learning exercise, taking Angular Seed, migrating it with my own data, my own to basically just have the same functionality as the Angular tutorial. And so this actually works. If I click on that, it comes up with the descriptions that I put in. And so I walked 1,000 miles in the summer of 2013. I walked from Salt Lake City to Jackson County, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri area. And so these are my a few of my campsites along the way, just for the fun of it. And you click on the view, comes back to the top. You can search according to state. So if I do Utah, it drops out the Colorado campsite. And of course it has the same functionality. You can sort by alphabetical. And then notice the animation. So that's fun. That was fun to do. This is Lamb's Canyon. I slipped out at the site of I-80 in Lamb's Canyon, and so you can see the animation changing one picture to the next. Okay, any questions? We got about 30 seconds. Yes.
I'm noticing that a lot of this has all the data loaded on the page.
Yes.
Do you have any tips on how you would handle paginated data with Angular?
Okay, paginated. You mean by?
So, like, if we have, let's say you have 1,000 campsites for each, you
Right.
only want to load those in all at once.
Right.
If you want to show like a result of 10 and then hit it paginated load to the next 10.
So this is and so those pictures are going to reside where? Where are you asking?
Imagining they would be on some kind of a server.
Okay.
Serving those up.
Yeah.
You know, probably.
Go ahead.
If you're gonna pull your data in like in a JSON string, you would want to just call for the paginated piece on the JSON. That's what I've done with applications where you have the beginning is you're on page 1 of 7, and then you've done all your data, and so then when you call your something to the next page, you then call for the next JSON string, and you're looking for 2 of 7.
And how do you actually reload that back into the page, though?
You have to feed it to the Angular load exactly.
Good question. Thank you for the answer. And so afterwards, you talk to him a little bit more, and he'll tell you all about it. Yeah.
There's actually a tutorial in the thing about pagination. So if you go Angular pagination, you can find it.
Okay. I did forget here to show one thing at the end, a couple more slides just quickly. Maybe not. Okay, so if you go to the my join ID 1405 14085, and in this I did put some more resources that I talked about earlier with the the Angular seed and the Angular tutorial are a little bit out of date. They don't really have the best practice and stuff. So this is if you go to my slides, it has some best practices links. Let's see, more on dependency injection. Let's see, I wanted to show you the one. Yeah, the style guide. This guy is kind of some of the current style guide. Best practice, current best practices. So I've got some links in there that you can go to for that. So thank you very much.